Hi Year 5 and 6, so we're going to read the next section today of the chapter Quidditch, chapter 11 from our book above pay grade, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone by J.K. Rowling. So in the last session we read the first part of chapter 11 Quidditch, and we found out that Harry is currently playing his very first Quidditch match ever, and at the moment he's not had very much to do. He's just been flying around at the top, keeping out of sight. But the Quidditch match is already quite fast-paced, and already somebody's been hit by the bludger, and Gryffindor have scored once already. So let's find out what happens and who wins this match. Way up above them, Harry was gliding over the game, squinting about for some sign of the snitch. This was part of his and Wood's game plan. "Keep out of the way until you catch sight of the snitch," Woods had said. "We don't want you attacked before you have to be." When Angelina had scored, Harry had done a couple of loop-the-loops to let out his feelings. Now he was back to staring around for the snitch. Once he caught sight of a flash of gold, but it was just a reflection from one of the Weasleys' wristwatches, and once a bludger decided to come pelting his way, more like a cannonball than anything, but Harry dodged it and Fred Weasley came chasing after it. "All right there, Harry," he had time to yell as he beat the bludger furiously towards Marcus Flint. "Slytherin in possession," Lee Jordan was saying. "Chaser Pusey ducks 2 bludgers, 2 Weasleys, and Chaser Bell, and speeds towards the—" "Wait a moment, was that the snitch?" A murmur ran through the crowd as Adrian Pusey dropped the quaffle, too busy looking over his shoulder at the flash of gold that had passed his left ear. Harry saw it. In a great rush of excitement, he dived downwards after the streak of gold. Slytherin seeker Terence Higgs had seen it too. Neck and neck they hurtled towards the snitch. All the chasers seemed to have forgotten what they were supposed to be doing as they hung mid-air to watch. Harry was faster than Higgs. He could see the little round ball, wings fluttering, darting up ahead. He put in an extra spurt of speed. Wham! A roar of rage echoed from the Gryffindors below. Marcus Flint had blocked Harry on purpose, and Harry's broom span off course, Harry holding on for dear life. "Foul!" screamed the Gryffindors. Madam Hooch spoke angrily to Flint and then ordered a free shot to the goalpost for Gryffindor. But in all of the confusion, of course, the golden snitch had disappeared from sight again. Down in the stands, Dean Thomas was yelling, "Send him off, ref! Red card!" "This isn't football, Dean," Ron reminded him. "You can't send people off in Quidditch. And what's a red card?" But Hagrid was on Dean's side. "They ought to change the rules. Flint could have knocked Harry out of the air." Lee Jordan was finding it difficult not to take sides. "So, after that obvious and disgusting bit of cheating—" "Jordan," growled Professor McGonagall. "I mean, after that open and revolting foul— Jordan, I'm warning you." All right. Flint nearly kills the Gryffindor seeker, which could happen to anyone, I'm sure. So a penalty to Gryffindor, taken by Spinnet, who puts it away no trouble, and we continue to play. Gryffindor still in possession." It was as Harry dodged another bludger, which he sent spinning dangerously past his head, that it happened. His broom gave a sudden, frightening lurch. For a split second, he thought he was going to fall. He gripped the broom tightly with both his hands and his knees. He'd never felt anything like that. That's our first question today. It's a prediction question. What do you think is happening to Harry's broom? Why do you think that this is happening? Have a think about why it might be behaving strangely. So I predict that his broom is going out of control because actually it's been cast a spell upon it. Somebody in Slytherin, I suspect, is using magic so that they can take the broom out of Harry's control and therefore give an advantage to their own team, Slytherin, and then the Slytherin might win the cup. It happened again. It was as though the broom was trying to buck him off. But Nimbus 2000s did not suddenly decide to buck their riders off. Harry tried to turn back towards the Gryffindor goalposts. He had half a mind to ask Wood to call some time out, and then he realised that his broom was completely out of his control. He couldn't turn it, he couldn't direct it at all. It was zigzagging through the air and every now and then making violent swishing movements which almost unseated him. Lee was still commentating. "Slytherin in possession. Flint with the quaffle, passes Spinnet, passes Bell, hit hard in the face by a bludger. Hope it broke his nose. Only joking, Professor. Slytherin score. Oh no." The Slytherins were cheering. No one seemed to have noticed that Harry's broom was behaving strangely. It was carrying him slowly higher away from the game, jerking and twitching as it went. "Dunno what Harry thinks he's doing," Hagrid mumbled. He'd stared through his binoculars. "If I didn't know better, I'd say he'd lost control of his broom, but he can't have." Suddenly, though, people were all pointing up at Harry, all over the stands. His broom had started to roll over and over with him, only just managing to hold on to it. Then the whole crowd gasped. Harry's broom had given a wild jerk and Harry had swung off it. He was now dangling from it, holding on with only one hand. "Did something happen to it when Flint blocked him?" Seamus whispered. "Can't have," Hagrid said, his voice shaking. "Can't nothing interfere with a broomstick except powerful dark magic. No kid could do that to a Nimbus 2000. That's our next question. It's a retrieval question. Why did Hagrid think that no magic could have affected Harry's broomstick during the game? So Hagrid thinks that it can't possibly have been magic because only dark magic would be able to have affected the broomstick in that way, and no kid could possibly know how to do dark magic that strong to affect a Nimbus 2000. At these words, Hermione seized Hagrid's binoculars, but instead of looking up at Harry, she started looking frantically at the crowd. "What are you doing?" moaned Ron, grey-faced. "I knew it," Hermione gasped. "Snape, look!" Ron grabbed the binoculars. Snape was in the middle of the stands opposite them. He had his eyes fixed on Harry and was muttering non-stop under his breath. "He's doing something. Jinxing the broom," said Hermione. "What should we do?" "Leave it to me." Before Ron could say another word, Hermione had disappeared. Ron turned the binoculars back on Harry. His broom was vibrating so hard it was almost impossible for him to hang on much longer. The whole crowd were on their feet watching, terrified, as the Weasleys flew up to try and pull Harry safely onto one of their brooms, but it was no good. Every time they got near him, the broom would jump higher still. They dropped lower and circled beneath him, obviously hoping to catch him if he fell. Marcus Flint seized the quaffle and scored 5 times without anyone even noticing. "Come on, Hermione," Ron muttered desperately. Hermione had fought her way across the stand to where Snape stood and was now racing along the row behind him. She didn't even stop to say sorry as she knocked Professor Quirrell headfirst into the row in front. Reaching Snape, she crouched down, pulled out her wand and whispered a few well-chosen words. Bright blue flames shot from her wand and onto the hem of Snape's robes. It took perhaps 30 seconds for Snape to realise that he was on fire. A sudden yelp told her that she had done her job. Scooping the fire off of him into a little jar in her pocket, she scrambled back along the row. Snape would never know what had happened. It was enough, though. Up in the air, Harry was suddenly able to clamber back onto his broom. "Neville, you can look now," Ron said. Neville had been sobbing into Hagrid's jacket for the last 5 minutes. Harry was speeding towards the ground when the crowd saw him suddenly clap his hand to his mouth, as though he was about to be sick. He hit the pitch on all fours, coughed, and something gold fell into his hand. "I've got the snitch!" he shouted, waving it above his head, and the game ended in complete confusion. "He didn't catch it, he nearly swallowed it," Flint said, howling 20 minutes later, but it made no difference. Harry hadn't broken any rules and Lee Jordan was still happily shouting the result. Gryffindor had won by 170 points to 60. So my last question today is an explain question. Explain how Gryffindor won the game. So Gryffindor won the game because on his way back down to the bottom of the pitch after his ordeal, Harry had somehow managed to catch the snitch in his mouth, nearly choking on it and nearly swallowing it. But because it was caught and because he was able to get it into his hand and claim that he had the snitch, didn't matter. He'd caught the snitch and that's the end of the game, and it meant that they were the winners. Harry heard none of this though. He was being made a strong cup of tea back in Hagrid's hut with Ron and Hermione. "It was Snape," Ron was explaining. "Hermione and I saw him. He was cursing your broomstick, muttering, and he wouldn't take his eyes off you." "Rubbish," said Hagrid, who hadn't heard a word of what gone on next to him in the stands. "Why Why would Snape do something like that? Harry, Ron and Hermione looked at each other, wondering what to tell him. Harry decided on telling the truth. I found out something about him, he told Hagrid. He tried to get past the three-headed dog at Halloween. It bit him. We think he was trying to steal whatever it's guarding. Hagrid dropped the teapot. How do you know about Fluffy? He said. Fluffy? Yeah, he's mine. I bought him off a Greek chappie that I met in the pub last year. I lent him to Dumbledore to guard the... Yes? Harry said eagerly. Now don't ask me any more, said Hagrid gruffly. That's top secret, that is. But Snape's trying to steal it. Rubbish, said Hagrid again. Snape's a Hogwarts teacher. He'd do nothing of the sort. So why did he just try and kill Harry? Cried Hermione. The afternoon's events certainly seemed to have changed her mind about Snape. I know a jinx when I see one, Hagrid. I've read all about them. You've got to keep eye contact, and Snape wasn't blinking at all. I saw him. I'm telling you, you're wrong, said Hagrid hotly. I don't know why Harry's broom acted like that, but Snape wouldn't try and kill a student. Now you listen to me, all three of you. You're meddling in things that don't concern you. It's dangerous. You forget that, dog, and you forget what is guarding. That's between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel. Aha! Said Harry. So there's someone called Nicholas Flamel involved as well, is there? Hagrid looked furious with himself. That's the end of chapter 11. So chapter 12 is going to be next, the Mirror of Erised. And I guess we're going to find out a little bit more about Fluffy, the three-headed dog, and what Fluffy might be guarding. And of course, what on earth Snape is doing to try and get whatever it is that's being guarded. Hope you enjoy the next bit of the story. Bye.